Should you just skip the mess of Medicare Advantage plans and Medicare Supplement plans altogether and risk it with original Medicare only? I'm about to show you something that I'm sure is out there somewhere, but I have yet to see it discussed like this. There is some relatively easy math that we can do to see what would make the most sense for you. The best way that I know how to show you the logic here is to bust out the trusty whiteboard and draw out some scenarios. I have the base costs here using national averages for original Medicare only, a Supplement Plan G, Plan N, High Deductible G, and a typical Advantage plan. These base dollar amounts do increase every year. The base costs, meaning you have nothing go wrong for an entire year, 0 paid healthcare visits. I'm using 2025 numbers, and you're just gonna have to trust me on these numbers because to explain every detail here would turn this video into an hour long and make it even more confusing. From this base case, I have 4 detailed videos on this channel that go over the exact costs and how they are covered for certain procedures that have happened to my family members over the past year or so. They are the actual costs submitted to Medicare and then passed on as our family's out-of-pocket costs. So we have an ambulance ride that led to a 3-day inpatient hospital stay. We have a knee surgery with physical therapy. We have a heart attack with physical therapy. And we have 10 months of chemotherapy for cancer treatment. Now, probably the worst thing that you could do right now is to skip ahead to the end just to see the final numbers and go off of those. There are explanations around these numbers as well as more details that should go into your decision that are deeper than just the physical numbers. But skip at your own risk. The base amount for a Medicare Supplement Plan G has a fixed cost of $4,140 per year, which is an additional $1,920 on top of original Medicare only. So almost $2,000 more expensive in every no healthcare cost year that you have. Plan N has a similar but slightly less expensive story, with Plan N being about $1,560 more expensive annually than just original Medicare. High Deductible Plan G is an option that we get asked about a lot. This option has lower premiums and is about $780 more expensive than original Medicare only, again, if nothing happens during the year. Lastly, we have a typical Medicare Advantage plan with a $5,000 maximum out of pocket. The typical Advantage plan will have no additional cost difference over original Medicare only. There are some other differences though. Unlike original Medicare and supplement plans, Advantage plans do come with things like drug coverage, some level of dental, vision, hearing, and other stuff. So for you, there's technically a net savings in fixed costs with an Advantage plan over original Medicare only if you had nothing go wrong in the year. And what I'm trying to say here is that we are not really comparing apples to apples, but we're trying our best. Also, there are Advantage plans that have Part B givebacks that lower your Part B premium costs. These are exceptions. They are not the rule and they are not available everywhere. Finally, with Advantage plans, you are replacing original Medicare and you no longer have access to all of the doctors that participate with original Medicare, and you will be working within that insurance company's networks. You will have prior authorizations and other things happening, so there are positive and negative trade-offs here that don't show up in the strict dollars and cents snapshot. Strictly looking at dollars and cents in a year where nothing goes wrong, the lowest cost option is technically the Advantage plan because again, you are getting more for the same cost of the Part B premium. Next cheapest is original Medicare only, followed by High Deductible Plan G, then N, then Plan G. And if we stopped right there, you have a math formula to see what your annual medical expenses would need to be in a given year for you to break even with original Medicare only, or supplement plans, or an Advantage plan. To make supplement plans technically worth it, you would need to be experiencing $1,920 worth of out-of-pocket costs or more per year under Plan G. For Plan N, it's $1,560 or more of out-of-pocket costs, and for High Deductible Plan G, it is a little bit more complicated with that deductible, and we'll get to why. So what are the costs of these procedures, and are they enough to break even? We'll start with the ambulance ride that led to a 3-day inpatient hospital stay. On original Medicare only, we have a Part B expense with the ambulance ride, and then the hospital stay is treated as a Part A expense. The total Medicare-approved billed costs were $15,741. With original Medicare only, you are dealing with the Part A deductible of $1,676 that you would pay out of pocket, as well as the Part B deductible of $257. Throw on your Part B premiums, and your total for this 1 year, if this was the only thing you had happen, is $4,153. With Plan G, you would still have the $257 Part B deductible out of your pocket, but then Plan G takes care of the rest at 100%. With the monthly premiums, it brings your annual total to $4,397, making the Plan G route $244 more expensive for the year than original Medicare only. With Plan N, you will still have the Part B deductible premiums and the Plan N premiums. Plan N's total cost comes to $4,037. That is $116 less expensive than if you were on original Medicare only. Plan N works a little different than Plan G with certain copays for hospital visits and ER visits. Those don't apply in this situation. High deductible Plan G gets a little bit weird. Here in 2025, the deductible with these plans is $2,870. So you are paying the Part B deductible of $257 for the ambulance ride because you haven't met the high deductible Plan G's deductible yet. Then, before Part A kicks in, you need to meet the Part A deductible as well, which is the $1,676. You add on the monthly premiums just to have the plan and the Part B premiums, and the total cost here is $4,933, which is $780 more than you would have paid on just original Medicare only. Finally, with the Advantage plan, you would have a copay for the ambulance ride and the inpatient hospital stay to the tune of about $1,265. You add in the Part B premiums, and our total is $3,485. This is $668 less than what you would see on original Medicare only. If you were to look at just this one instance, this one event happening, Plan G is not going to save you any money. It is costing you more than if you were on original Medicare only. For Plan N, we have some small savings. It would take this same event happening every single year for about 13.4 years for Plan N to break even. High deductible G is costing you more than original Medicare only, and on an Advantage plan, you are pretty much ahead for the rest of your life if this were all you were to have happen, or if you were to strangely have this exact same situation happen to you every single year for the rest of your life. But there's more to come on this point. Let's move to a knee surgery. We're going to go a little bit faster here. If you want a more detailed breakdown of these costs for each of these, they all have their own videos that are linked in the description of this video. On original Medicare only, the knee surgery would cost you about $6,272 out of pocket. For all of these moving forward with the regular Plan G, the total cost is $4,397. For those who like predictability, this is pretty much as predictable as it gets at this point. Plan G would save you about $1,875 on the year versus original Medicare only. This means that you are slightly better than breaking even with Plan G over original Medicare only if you have an equivalent cost about every other year. Plan N will also be the same cost for these moving forward at $4,037, saving you $2,235 on your knee surgery versus original Medicare only. This means that you are better than breaking even with a Plan N over original Medicare only if you have an equivalent cost about once every 2.5 years or so. High deductible Plan G comes in at a cost of $5,870. The knee surgery Medicare approved amount is $15,200. This is a Part B expense, and with a high deductible G, you need to pay the plan's $2,870 deductible first. Add in the plan premiums and the Part B premiums, and that is how we get to this $5,870 number. This saves you $402 over original Medicare only, but costs you quite a bit more compared to the other supplement plans. This means that you are about breaking even with a high deductible Plan G over original Medicare only if you have equivalent costs about once every other year. Finally, the Advantage plan costs consist of copays like imaging copays, doctor visit copays, and surgery copays, and then physical therapy copays totaling about $1,000, plus the Part B premium costs for a total of $3,220, saving you around $3,052 versus original Medicare only, and the Advantage plan in this scenario will always be less expensive. Now we're getting more intense with a heart attack. In this instance, the heart attack occurs and much of the costs were Part A costs through the inpatient hospital stay and surgery, which actually saves original Medicare's costs quite a bit. Total cost with original Medicare only was $6,553 out of pocket. Plan G is the same at $4,397, saving you $2,156 over original Medicare only. This puts you at needing to have this event happen or equivalent cost events about every other year to make these costs break even. Plan N is the same cost as before with $4,037, saving you $2,516 over original Medicare only. This puts you at about every 3 years or so of having to have these similar costs to break even. High Deductible Plan G costs $5,870, saving you $683 over original Medicare only. This puts you at about every other year having these costs in order to break even. The Advantage Plan costs come in at $4,620, saving you $1,933 over original Medicare only. Still, always less expensive than original Medicare only. Our last example, and by far the most expensive, would be the 10 months of chemotherapy to treat cancer. On original Medicare only with this example, you would be responsible to pay $77,500 out of pocket. This coming from the fact that there is no maximum on your Part B coinsurance of 20%. Chemo is most often covered under Part B and is incredibly expensive. With Plan G, the cost is still $4,397, saving you $73,103 over original Medicare. Plan G with this one event has more than paid for itself for 38 years in this instance. Plan N cost is still $4,037, saving you $73,463 over original Medicare only. Plan N has more than paid for itself for 47 years in this instance. High Deductible Plan G cost is still $5,870, saving you $71,630 over original Medicare only. High Deductible Plan G has more than paid for itself for 92 years in this instance. The Advantage Plan costs would have you meeting your max out of pocket. In this case, we had a $5,000 max out of pocket plan, putting the total cost at about $7,220, saving you $70,280 over original Medicare only. Again, this will always be less expensive than original Medicare only. Here is why it's important to not stop this video here, because we need to go through the realities of what this all means. There are 3 main ideas that we need to keep in mind here. First, insurance never has been and never will be about being the least expensive decision that you can make in a single year or even a couple years. Second, the reality for most is not what we just covered. And third, Medicare plans are individual plans. Allow me to explain these 3 things. Insurance never has been and never will be about being the least expensive option for you in a single year or even a couple of years. Insurance exists to protect against high-cost situations, and you are trading more rare, high-cost event risk with lower cost, more predictable risk in the form of monthly premiums, deductibles, copays, and coinsurance. This is insurance in the most simple form, the exchange of risk. So a dangerous conclusion to draw here would be, see, in 1 year, I saved more on original Medicare only versus Plan G, so Plan G is a ripoff and a bad deal. Well, if you stay healthy your entire life, then yes, you invested money into an insurance plan that never broke even on its investment. Or, on the other extreme, we could look at my mom's cancer costs and come to the conclusion that her investment paid itself off almost 40 to 100 times over because she did have high healthcare costs, and it protected her and our family against those incredibly high costs. Will everyone have perfect health the rest of their lives? No. Will everyone have cancer? Also no. Which brings us to our second important idea to understand. The reality for most people falls into one of 3 buckets. Bucket number 1, they really don't have much in terms of healthcare costs for most of their lives until it's time to pass away, and then maybe there are some pretty high hospitalization costs like the ambulance ride and then passing away in a hospital example. Or a slight variation on this is that they don't have any costs and just randomly pass away in their sleep. But the point is that there are people who have very low healthcare costs for the rest of their life on Medicare. Bucket number 2, they have quite high costs with chronic conditions that they have to live with for many years on until they pass away. And then bucket number 3, they have a mix of no-cost years with some moderate cost years and some high-cost years that are sprinkled in there. The first 2 examples or 2 buckets, those are easy. If we had a crystal ball and you have no costs or very rare moderate costs at the end of life, original Medicare only or Advantage plans are no-brainers. If we have chronic high-cost issues that are with us before, during, and while we're on Medicare, a supplement plan makes a lot of sense, most likely Plan G or Plan N, depending on the types of doctor visits that you have. It's that third bucket, a mix of no cost, moderate cost, and some high cost years sprinkled in, that is impossible to predict. None of these are truly possible to predict, but this third one is the most difficult, and this is where your individual tolerance for risk really comes into play. This is where people get so passionate and call each other all kinds of terrible names, which is just silly. Some people believe that they will fall into bucket number 1, and an Advantage plan is a no-brainer for them. Many people will save a ton of money over their lives with this route. Others fall into category number 2, and they hate the idea of Advantage plans because there are years where the Advantage plan will cost more. In these examples, the higher cost items like heart attacks and cancer cost more on Advantage plans than the supplement plans. And then still others fall into category or bucket number 3. This group is impossible to predict. Some hate risk and they would rather pay more for things like supplement plans to have the peace of mind knowing that if something catastrophic were to happen, they have fixed, predictable costs and they can visit any provider that they want throughout the country that participates with Medicare. Some are totally fine with the risk and they will bet on original Medicare only, hoping that they will save money some years that will cover the moderate to bad years where they do have higher costs. A much smaller strata of people go into this camp. Some try to balance the risk line with something like a high deductible Plan G. There is a limit to the risk, meaning that the unlimited Part B coinsurance problem is handled, but the deductible is quite high and doesn't save you as much as the other supplement plans in most high-cost cases. However, if nothing goes wrong, they aren't paying that much and they're saving over those other supplement plans and still have access to any provider nationwide that participates with Medicare. And then finally, some like the idea of saving on the Advantage plans even more money than any of these other options in the years when nothing goes wrong. They're okay working within a managed care structure and networks and prior authorizations if something does need to be taken care of. Insurance agents in general, including myself, have a sample size of people that we interact with that build anecdotal stories of the good, the bad, and the ugly. We are biased towards not going with original Medicare only because we see the instances when things do not go as planned, when big problems happen. This is when people are most likely to reach out for help or to complain. When things become more costly than people hoped or they expected, this is when people get upset. People willing to risk it on original Medicare only, expecting to stay healthy their entire life or at least most of it, and then something changes to where that's not the case, and now they have extraordinarily high costs with little recourse, they have problems. Same idea with high deductible G. The plan is to have lots of good years and maybe a couple of bad years, but when a couple of bad years turn into several bad years, these costs become a problem. And again, the same idea with Advantage plans. They expect to stay healthy forever. They expect that their doctors will always stay in network. They expect that whatever procedures that they could have imagined that they would need would go through without a hitch. And then if something along these lines doesn't go as planned and costs become tough, we have upsetting situations. The flip side to these three are the people who are afraid of catastrophic events happening and they purchase more expensive insurance options than they need throughout their life. So they invest in Plan G or Plan N and then nothing goes wrong. And then they see themselves paying relatively high costs that continue to go up over the course of their lives for something that they aren't using, and then they feel upset. Their neighbors are telling them that they don't pay anything or they pay less than them, and that is a hard thing to emotionally handle for some people. This channel's whole purpose and our whole purpose and job is to meet with individuals like you and fill out your individual relationship with risk, try to understand your current health profile and see how that influences your future health profile, and then present options that align with your budget, your health, and your risk tolerance. That's what I see as my job. That's what my partners are trying to accomplish here. That's what I think most agents are trying to do for you. Outside of that, I genuinely do not care which plan you pick as long as it checks all of the boxes that you have for yourself, not the boxes that I have for myself. If you have an agent that is pressuring you into an Advantage plan, even though you identify with a different persona than what we went over here, that's a problem. If an agent is pressuring you into a high-cost supplement plan, even though you identify with a different persona than what we went over here, that's a problem. Okay, the third and last main idea to take from this, Medicare plans are individual plans. So spouses out there, each of you can go with whatever you want. You do not need to go with the same thing as your spouse. What most fail to realize with this is that when things do go wrong, it is your spouse who is dealing with these healthcare decisions more often than you. Your spouse is handling the doctors. Your spouse is handling the bills and the phone calls. And if you have major health concerns, they're the ones handling this. So please make this decision with your spouse if you are married, or if you have children that are going to be your caregivers, at least inform them on what you're thinking and going through here. I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Do I think most people should avoid going with original Medicare only? Yes. But that is just my opinion, and I'm just a guy on YouTube. I have a bias against going with original Medicare only because I have seen the ugly side of that path too many times. You could justify having original Medicare only if you could guarantee the following 3 things. Number 1, you don't have any real high costs, hospital or medical needs ever. Or number 2, you space those out. Any high cost healthcare expenses are spaced out over several years, and the bad years don't outpace the savings of your good years. And then finally, number 3, you are disciplined enough to set aside those savings into an account, allowing for that amount that you are saving on original Medicare only versus the supplement plan options to accumulate to where the higher cost years are covered by your savings. If you don't have high cost years, you win. The problem with this is that most humans are relatively bad at saving money. Or outside of all of this, if you are just super rich and you can handle any level of costs to you, I guess you can do whatever you want. But here's the interesting thing about the truly rich clients that I have interacted with. The rich understand the value of mitigating risk through appropriate insurance. And I have literally never seen anyone myself who has really high levels of net worth and wealth take on the risk of original Medicare only. All right, I leave secret code words at the end of most of my videos to help me with comment management. I've been asked why I do this, and couldn't people just find it in the comments? Sure. But believe it or not, there are a lot of angry people out there in the world, and they like to try and find fault in other people for trying to help, and they come out in droves with videos like this where I'm comparing different plans, and they love leaving pretty mean comments without having watched the video. I'd like to say that after 4 years here on YouTube, I'm able to let them just slide off my back and not worry about them, but I'm not that strong of a person. So what I have done to help myself is that I leave these secret code words. That way, if you have one of them in your comment, then I know, okay, they've watched the full video, they've thought about it, and then they left a comment, and I can engage with that. If they are willing to read through the other comments to find the secret code word, that means that they've likely spent enough time reading the other comments to know that the video tries to cover all of the angles. If someone didn't make it to the end and they just want to cause problems or fights or arguments, this helps me know which comments that I can ignore. So the secret code word for this video is sunburn because I spent the weekend at my son's baseball tournament and I got a little bit roasted. All right, we are here to help people through their Medicare decisions by explaining how Medicare actually works, including all of these plans. Where you live matters. My partners are licensed in all 50 states, so we can give you information specific to where you live down to your zip code. If you are struggling with any of these decisions, you can reach me directly with my email in the description where I can either answer that question for you or I can connect you to a partner licensed in your state, or you can go to theretirementnerds.com to contact me as well. Here is a video that goes over the 20-year costs of each of these plans, and it also has a free spreadsheet that you can download to plug in your own numbers. You can use your own assumptions, and then you can see those costs projected out for yourself. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you over there.